So yesterday I was looking through this, and a couple of things just really hit me, and I'll end up sharing them with you. But this is definitely a gold mine. This is filled with all sorts of things that it's just like truth bullets, right? They just hit you, and they hit you, and they lodge in your spine, so you can't get them taken out later. And you just have to carry them around with you. That's right. You wouldn't know what to do. So, today we're going to talk about truth bullets. No, actually, that's the first time I've said that. Anyway, last week, does anybody remember what the focus was on? What was that? Wow. Deep. Right? Okay. Being an athlete. Right? So it had to do with a mindset, right? Yes. Had to do with your mindset. It had to do with passing down that mindset. Had to do with legacy. Today we're going to continue on with that. But when I say he, I mean Paul, is going to focus specifically now on what you need to be working on as an athlete, as a soldier, as a farmer, those important things that you need to do on a regular basis. So basically that means there are some truths that you need to understand and you need to hold dear. The first one we kind of also discussed last week, and that is the fact that Jesus Christ is a descendant of King David and was raised from the dead. Right? That's a good foundation. That's a good truth bullet right there. That's something that you need to understand and you need to hold dear, because there are people that would say otherwise. And I'm sure that will be gone over quite a bit. We're going to continue now from verse 10 through the end of chapter 2. So let's just go ahead and read that to begin. So I am willing to endure anything if it will bring salvation and eternal glory in Christ Jesus to those God has chosen. This is a trustworthy saying. If we die with him, we will also live with him. If we endure hardship, we will reign with him. If we deny him, he will deny us. And if we are unfaithful, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny who he is. Remind everyone about these things and command them in God's presence to stop fighting over words. Such arguments are useless, and they can ruin those who hear them. Work hard so you can present yourself to God and receive his approval. Be a good worker, one who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly explains the word of truth. Avoid worthless, foolish talk that only leads to godless behavior. This kind of talk spreads like a cancer. As in the case of Hymenaeus and Philetus, they have left the path of truth, claiming that the resurrection of the dead has already occurred. In this way, they have turned some people away from the faith. But God's truth stands firm like a foundation stone with this inscription: the Lord knows those who are his, and all who belong to the Lord must turn away from evil. In a wealthy home, some utensils are made of gold and silver, and some are made of wood and clay. And the expensive utensils are used for special occasion, and the cheap ones are for everyday use. If you keep yourself pure, you will be a special utensil for honorable use. Your life will be clean, and you will be ready for the master to use you for every good work. Run from anything that stimulates youthful lusts. Instead, pursue righteous living, faithfulness, love, peace. Enjoy the companionship of those who call on the Lord with pure hearts. Again, I say, don't get involved in foolish, ignorant arguments that only start fights. A servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but must be kind to everyone, be able to teach, and be patient with difficult people. Gently instruct those who oppose the truth. Perhaps God will change those people's hearts, and they will learn the truth. Then they will come to their senses and escape from the devil's trap, for they have been held captive by him to do whatever he wants. Let's start by examining the trustworthy saying. Obviously, it makes sense that if we die with him, we will also live with him. If we endure hardship, that we will reign with him. And if we deny him, he will deny us. The interesting part, though, is that he follows that up with, if we are unfaithful, he is still faithful. And why is he still faithful? Because he cannot deny himself. There is that saying everyone knows, right? God is the same, or variations thereof, right? And why is that? Why is it that God is the same? He is the same because he said he is the same. And he exists beyond time and space. Okay, that works too. But God is the same. He does not change. In a world where we deal with nothing but change on a consistent basis, where we deal with people who are fickle, who change their minds, who get somewhere along the way warped, right? They start taking this little tiny abhorrent deer trail, and then suddenly they don't know how to make their way back, right? That happens all the time. You know, for example, not to make it really real, but there was a jogger just last week, went jogging up in the over by Multnomah Falls, and being his first time there, he didn't know the way, but he was running with his companion that did, and he thought it'd be a good idea to run ahead. And about 3 a.m., when they finally found him, fortunately, he was smart enough to stay where he was and to cover himself with moss and to keep himself warm, because all he had on was his jogging outfit. He didn't take anything extra with him. Just like that runner running through trails that we don't understand, that we can't see, we have a tendency sometimes to think that it's best for us to run ahead. It's best for us to break free of what we know, to go off in a different direction, to get involved in things because our fancy fits it, right? And that's where we get into the fact that we shouldn't quibble or quarrel over words. There is a basic foundation, there's a basic truth, and that basic truth is that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God, that he's a descendant of King David, that he is raised from the dead. We know this to be true because it has been witnessed, and even if it hadn't been witnessed, God has said it is so. Since God has said it is so, and God is the only thing that we're exposed to in this world that doesn't change, we can be sure that it is the truth. We are to remind everyone of these truths. So when we encounter people that want to quibble over words, that want to make false claims, that want to change that understanding, that truth that we know, it's really easy to combat because we know the truth. And how do you keep yourself grounded in that truth? By reading God's Word. By spending time studying it. By spending time ingraining it in your heart. These are the types of things that Paul was willing to suffer for. These truths that didn't change, because though the situation that he was in would change, though he would be chained, this truth would still be there. This understanding would not change, regardless of the situation that he found himself in. And this is what he passes on to Timothy. Work hard so that you can present yourself to God and receive his approval. Be a good worker, one who does not need to be ashamed and who correctly explains the word of truth. How do you understand what the word of truth is? I literally just said it. Yeah, right. You have to be grounded. You have to be involved. You have to be studying. You have to be with a group of people that understand what the truth is too. Because if you're not, it is possible that you could fall into worthless and foolish talk that leads to godless behavior. Now, my translation said this kind of talk spreads like a cancer. Other translations are more graphic if you understand what gangrene really is. Unlike cancer, gangrene is an infection. Gangrene is an infection that you can't just, leave it alone and hope that it gets better. If you leave it alone, if you ignore it, you're pretty much just signing your life away. If you're lucky, you'll be able to cut off the affected limb and save the rest of the body. But it spreads deep and it spreads fast. It is not something that can be ignored. So when he's advising to not fight over words, to correctly explain the word of truth, and to avoid worthless, foolish talk, that doesn't mean that you turned a blind eye to it, that you pretend that it doesn't exist, or that you, you don't deem it necessary to approach. It still has to be dealt with. But how is it dealt with? It's dealt with by sharing the truth. It's not dealt with by destroying or arguing over the meaning of these words. It's dealt with holding true to the basics by being willing to give those basics over and over again, knowing that they don't change, that they are the same. Knowing that no matter what is thrown at them, they will hold up. God's truth stands firm like a foundation stone. Do you understand what a foundation stone is? We have one in our building. If you look over by the stairs just before you come up, it has a stone that specifically says, 1902? Glencoe Baptist Church? What's that? Okay. Well, it's been a while since I looked at it. 1908? Okay. It has a date, and it has a name. But that's part of what this building is. If you were to try to remove that from the building, we would, pretty much just crumble. I mean, we can do all sorts of things. We can cover it up. In fact, at one point in time, there was a plaque there. But even with the plaque removed, it's still there. The information's still there. It doesn't go away. It doesn't change. You can try to dress it up however you want to. You can try to add fancy coverings to it, or, like a faux brick. That would look terrible because the rest of the faux brick kind of doesn't look good. You can try to cover it up with a fancy mural, but the reality is it's still going to be there, and it's not going to change. God's truth is always going to be there. It is never going to change. No matter how people try to gussy it up or to alter it so that it seems to be something that it's not, it's still there, and it is still the same. And the only way that you can guard yourself against being tricked into thinking that it's something different now, that it's newer, that it's more up to speed with where we are out in the world, is to ground yourself in His Word. Ground yourself in the understanding that the truth does not change, that God does not change. Only by being firmly grounded in that can you see past the facades that are thrown up. Can you avoid quibbling over the meaning of words? Can you hold strong to the truth that is there? And it is a rarity. It is something that is not common for people to grab hold of that truth and to use it. And that's why we are talking about utensils. How many of you have those special silverware or the special china? We used to. Do we still do? We still do? It's just, right? Right? You know, these are special things. Admittedly, we're not a rich congregation. But even some of us, we have those special plates. Some of us used to have a china cabinet, right? That the stuff stays in and it looks pretty until you have guests. You have the special silverware that's set aside. We are called to be that special stuff that's set aside. Perfectly functional, able to be used, but it's not just used for the common, for the rabble. It's not used for anything that could be slopped on the plate. It is put together for elegant feasts, for gatherings. It is only used when there's a more, regal event going on. Even if it's just family gathering together, that's when it's pulled out. That's when it's used, right? And you're not having some, store-bought pizza on it. This isn't Totino's time, right? No, but even Totino's, come on. On the fancy china? No. This is a home cooked. Some of us even make it from scratch meal that is made with extra care and love. That time and effort are spent into it. Not just, hey, let me run down to Safeway real quick, or I'll run to the plaid pantry and get that extra stuff real quick. This is important stuff. We are set apart for those important matters. We should not get involved in these little things. These little quibbles, they are much less important. They are much less important. These meals of cereal are not something that we will focus on, that we will spend and waste our effort on. We are to be set aside for something more regal than that, for more important business. We will be clean and ready for the master to use for every good work. Because there's one thing about those special dishes, right? They always get put away properly. They always get washed. Special care is taken to not chip them. The silverware is polished. Sometimes. It's not something that you casually throw around or that you just leave heaped in the sink. Special care is taken with them. We will be ready for every good work. Paul indicates that we are to run from anything that stimulates youthful lusts and instead pursue righteous living, faithfulness, love, and peace, and enjoy the companionship of those who call on the Lord with pure hearts. This is a reminder that there is a change that takes place. Right? When you finally take hold of the truth of who Christ is, who God is, when you join into that relationship with Him that He wants to have with you, that He's been pursuing you your whole life for, there's a change that takes place. This comes with that first act. You turn away from those youthful desires, from those things that you lusted after when you were young. You're created anew. You're born anew. So if you have those things that are still at the back of your mind that still have that power over you, that control over you, you need to run away from those. Now, when he says run away from them, that doesn't mean that you'll never be able to engage in those activities again. One of the things that I had to run away from was video games. It was really bad. I don't know that you've ever really understood how bad it was. My wife only has an inkling of it. Considering I went to college on an electronic engineering program and all my time was spent in front of a computer because, I had to program, right? We had to write programs for that. And I had to tutor people on how to do it. That literally took me minutes. And my only motivation was the fact that I'd be able to play games. And online games then took a lot of effort. And consoles were in their infancy, but still, I found a way. Had little LAN parties with my roommates. I would literally stay up all night. And this is why I drank a case of Pepsi a day. It was a very negative thing, and it had control over me. I had to turn my back on it, which really hurt because I really love to do that. But even today, I have to be very careful and very accountable to other people. I can't just willy-nilly, indulge myself in that type of thing. There are certain controls that have to be in place. Those things have to be set up so that my youthful desires don't get the best of me. But because the work of God in my life, because of the people that He's put me around, I am able to still participate in those things now. Because they don't produce that same strong pull. I have the ability to turn the off switch myself, and I have the ability to turn off the computer. There's an opportunity for growth in those things that have torn you away when you were younger. Those things that have pulled towards you, that have grasped at you. We are not stuck in the past. We have grown beyond those things. But if you're not yet at the point that you can be, you can withstand those, then you should turn away from those things. And you should hang out with people that are able to hold you accountable, that are able to be a companion for you. People that pursue righteous living and faithfulness and love and peace, and who call on the Lord with pure hearts. It's not something that you can overcome by yourself. It's a relationship. There are certain things that you have to do, and especially as a leader, you have to keep in mind. But even if you're not a leader, you need to prepare yourself for these things. You have to understand the truth. You have to understand the basic foundation. You have to prepare yourself to be able to stand firm and to explain what that truth is. You have to grow in maturity. Make yourself ready. So when Paul says to him, be an approved worker who's not ashamed, that's not just for Timothy. That's an example of how we all should live. We should all prepare ourselves and be ready. We should all be grounded in the companionship of people who understand what that truth is. People that can hold us accountable. People who will help us to be strong against foolish and ignorant arguments. People that will help us as we fight against that cancer, that gangrene that can spread very quickly and very easily. So my questions for you today. What for you are those youthful lusts and desires? They have to be identified. How else can they be guarded against? What do you do to keep yourself grounded in truth? And I'm not talking just the one-word answer or two-word answer. I studied the Bible. Expand on that. What other activities do you participate in to keep yourself grounded in truth? There was a third one that I can't remember at the moment. Praise the Lord. I'll leave you with this one thought. As a congregation, we have dealt with many partings. We have dealt with those relationships being torn apart. And what it comes down to is a quibble over words, quibble over understanding. In all of those things, we are told to be strong. Continue to be willing to have the conversations, to teach. Teach what? Always the truth. Always that foundation. What are you doing to keep that truth strong? What are you doing to make yourself able to have those conversations, even with those that have changed? And are you willing to be patient in that process? Because that's what real wisdom and maturity looks like. Let's go discuss these things. Cell group time.